So we need to travel to this castle, I think. Let's go inside. We need to speak with Captain Renner. Nice, some coins. Let's go inside. Oh, the guard stops us. Halt, state your business. Skip. Well, let's try to bribe him, right? 50 coins. Okay, he's not getting paid enough for this, so nice, perfect. Ah, the gate opens, perfect. Okay, let's go inside. Okay, the guard is warning us. I think the castle is there, but in the meantime, let's buy some goods at this merchant. Skip, skip, skip. What do you have for sale? Look at my ware. Sure, let's buy some apples. Perfect. Nice. Do you want a dialogue system like this in your Envision project? You can. It's now available. Next, I want to show you how the system is made, how you can use it, how it's set up, and how to use it in your own project. I want to split this up in two sections. First of all, I want to talk about the fixed dialogues. And this is like a fixed dialogue where we have option menus, things like that. And the other one is called world dialogues. And the world dialogues were more related to the things that people say when, for instance, I'm in the vicinity of this guard and he says something, but when I leave, he says farewell, things like that. When you get the map, the project, you will get a map like this. And this is split up in this is called the fixed dialogues, and this is called the world dialogues. First, let's talk about the fixed dialogues. So these fixed dialogues, these have, for instance, obviously basic sentences, and this is like this. And it also uses predefined sentences. So in this case, it said, "Hello there." And what does it mean, the hello there? You probably want to say a fixed dialogue like a greeting a lot of times, or saying farewell or taunting or whatever. And that's why we make a preset of fixed dialogues. And the other thing is we can also make custom sentences, and these custom sentences are just typed out. So let me show you how that is set up for this specific example. So I'm going to search for DT dialogues. And I'm going to check which sentence does this NPC play. In my dialogue manager at this NPC, it says, okay, it's showing dialogue example basic sentences. So when I navigate towards the basic sentences, that's this one. And this structure is defining the complete conversation. So let's try and dissect this, right? So we have these sentences right here. Basically, we have 6 different sentences in this dialogue. The first one is a predefined intro. And then we can check, does it have a custom sentence? Yes, this is the custom sentence. The next sentence, that is this one, the predefined example. So that's this one. And this one is using a predefined sentence. And this saying, hey, I'm using the core greeting. And who is talking this? So we can open up the sentence settings and you see the player is saying this. So as you saw when we are playing this dialogue, then we saw the player is saying a greeting. And the greeting is used from this predefined dialogue, specifically this one. And we have a lot of predefined dialogues. Let me open up a couple of them. I have all kinds of attribute based, like I'm encumbered, I have low energy, low mana, low food, things like that. Combat ones, alert, death cry, pain, taunting, etc. The core ones, greeting, thank you, goodbye. Emotion based, frustration, cheers, laughing. Movement based, quest based, failed, requesting help, shop, and world interactions. If you make like a very large game like an Hogwarts or a Skyrim or an Oblivion, things like that, or Red Dead Redemption, GTA, doesn't really matter, just games with a lot of dialogues, you really want to have these predefined sets. Let's open one, the most simple one, the greeting one. So what we do right here is we have a mapping from a specific voice to a specific sentence. So we were a masculine player and we have 2 sentences right here. or it says hello there, or it says greetings. We could link an audio file to it if we want. We could also play animations with it if we want, like waving for the greeting, things like that. Or we could just use auto-generate gibberish sounds for the audio in general. And we could also add potential memory context. And what is a memory context? Let's say, hey, you want to have a different greeting if you already knew the player that the NPC that you're talking to. Then, for instance, you don't say hello there, but you say, it's you again, something like that. So you could say it requires a memory context, has these memories, then it uses that one instead of the previous one. Nice. So these things are set up here in the data table. Let's try and check all the other examples. So this one was the random sentence. So this random Hank. I never know what to say next. Okay, let's talk again. Every conversation feels a bit different, doesn't it? So that's a different sentence, and that's because of it's a boolean in the array to say, hey, pick a random sentence. Choices and memory and dialogue. So this one remembers if you talked to this one before. So it says, hey, you may ask or continue your journey, etc. So now if we have asked a question, it says anything else instead of trying to repeat the same question again. So therefore we can make branching, logic and things like that, which is really awesome. The next one is obviously triggering events. As we saw in the intro, we also opened the gate, but we can also add quests. We can do basically anything that you want. You can trigger any event. However, you could also try to trigger cinematics like this. Nice. The other one is specifically for the memory. So here we're talking with Peter, and it says, hey, nice to meet you too. But now currently manually I'm just can add and remove this memory. So now I'm going to say, hey, I've met him before. And now he says, hey, you again, so great to see you. Oh well, it's me that's saying that. And then he says, yeah, you, good to see you too. But now let's remove the memory. Hey, I've never seen you before. So let me quickly show you how that is set up, because it's very interesting. This NPC has a memory component assigned. And this memory component is simply a container of memories. And these memories are tag based. So let's say met player, things like that. And here in the dialogue, let's say the memory first meeting. So this is currently the first meeting. This one is not set up right now to add a memory to the player. That's just because I manually want to add it and remove it. However, let's say if we could do that, because we can, what we would do is go to the first meeting, then let's go to the first sentence and say, hey, I've never seen you before, nice to meet you. When that one is spoken, we could say, after that, I want to trigger an event. And what kind of event do we want to trigger? Well, we want to say add memory. And what kind of memory? Met before. Yeah, something like this, met before. And then what we could do in the world right here, because currently this path is triggering has seen player is the memory, by the way, and this one is removing that memory. But this AI, this has a dialogue manager, and it has options to say, hey, which dialogue do I want to start? And I am able to start two separate dialogues. The first one is met before, the second one is first meeting. And what we can see is that it has requirements. So it says, hey, if you have seen player, then we use this dialogue. However, if we don't have this one, then we play that dialogue. So based on that, you can simply add memories, inject it everywhere. It's just stack based. It's very easy. Just take a look at this specific example. Another one, what we really want in most dialogue systems is obviously time-based things. So in this case, it will pop up a timer. So it says, hey, quick, do you want me to take cover or stand your ground? If I say yes or no, it will have a different response. However, if it's 0, then it will say, okay, go back to a default setting. And this one was, hey, yes, take cover. Obviously, we also have a resolver system. And that resolver system is specifically for things like bribing or whatever, everything that you want to have a specific chance of. In this case, we just have a chance of, I think, 50% configured. When we talk to this guard, then we have a bribe option. And that resolver is returning, okay, is it meeting some requirements, things like that. In this case, very easy, just 50%. And based on the resolver, in this case it's random or 50%, it will say a different outcome. Okay, so now it was successful. And in this case we have a memory of if we have asked it before, try to bribe him, then we don't get that option back again, which is very cool. Another one is force dialogue in proximity. Forcing dialogue in proximity is perfect for if you have a game like The Elder Scrolls and you stole something, then you want a guard to run towards you and say, halt, what are you doing? Come with me, pay the fine, or you need to go to jail. Something like that. Or in this case, I didn't press a button, so it opened the dialogue itself because hey, halt, state your business. And I can try to bribe him again. Again, successful. Nice. So that is the fixed dialogues. And I think we need to set up a dialogue together, right? So let's simply take one of our NPCs. I think this one. I've placed him here, our own dialogue. So if you don't have this NPC or whatever, what it needs is we need to have a memory component if we want it to have a memory injected or things like that. It's not required. What is required is the AC Dialogue Manager NPC. The other one that's required is a voice component. And a real dialogue manager is also not required, but it's nice to have. So for now, the main dialogue, let's only set up the dialogue manager and the voice. So what is voice? We can create new voices. It's a specific voice asset, a dialogue voice. It's from envision. And basically what it's doing, that is being used, for instance, in the mappings for the predefined sentences. Let's say this one is a rebel. And it's a masculine rebel. We could use auto-generate gibberish sounds. If we don't, then we need to provide audio files for each sentence, which is okay, but it's just a lot of work. For now, let's just try and use the gibberish sounds, but we can have different profiles. This one was a rebel, so let's say rebel deep sentence. So that's a good one. And the voice component also includes the name. So let's say this one is rebel. And an optional portrait image for cartoony style, but I'm not showing you that right now. Yeah, rebel grunts. Nice. So now we have set up the prerequisites of the voice. The next thing to do is set up a dialogue. Currently we copy paste the dialogue manager from this one. So it has all kinds of things set up in this dialogue manager which we don't need. So what we can do is just try to remove everything or show only modified properties. And you can also see the setting, hey, force dialogue when entering proximity. I'm going to reset it. Only force when entering for the first time. Also going to reset that and the proximity range. So we just have a clean start. Perfect. Okay, now we want to say you can start this specific dialogue. However, we need to provide a tag. So now we have to set up our dialogue in our dialogue data table. Go to DT dialogues and we could or duplicate an existing one or we could add a new one. In this case, let's just make a very basic dialogue and add a new one. since we need to define all kinds of tags and things like that, I'm going to make sure to open the gameplay tag manager. A small side note, we could make a visual editor above this. It's not per se needed. This is quite quick. However, we might do so in the future or provide something like that. However, this works just fine. For now, let's do a plus. I have a source file and I want to store all my dialog tags in the dialog manager.ini. Okay, let's try and think of a dialog. Let's name this dialog example.weird. Why not, right? Let's add it. And what I could do is I could copy this name here and I could duplicate this to our identifier dialog example.weird. I'm also just going to name the row like this. Sure thing. And also in the meantime, we have our dialog manager here. And we're going to say, I want to start this specific dialog. So now we have everything set up. Now the only thing to do is create some dialogues. Okay. First of all, what we need to do is we need to have sentence identifiers. So what we could do is dialog example.weird, say, call this intro. I'm going to copy the name to the clipboard and I'm going to make sure that that's the identifier. And let's make a next sentence, or should we make an option? No, I think we should do an option. If we create an option, that means that we don't need a next sentence identifier because the option is defining which sentence is next because we want to branch, right? So let's, if we make a predefined sentence, use one, just like this, the greeting, now it will greet us directly. We can already test this out, by the way. So I'm going to press play, walk towards our rebel grunt. Well, a visitor, hey? Nice. So that's the predefined sentence. Look what the wind dragged in. Well, a visitor. And remember, this predefined sentence, that one is here mapping a voice to a sentence. So in this case we had our rebel grunt, masculine one. And here we have these sentences, right? And if we add things here, then it will automatically choose one. However, we could also say, I don't want to use this predefined sentence. I just want to make a custom sentence. And we can. We could identify spoken audio, things like that. However, just say, say something weird for me. I dare you. Okay, that's a good sentence. Now, let's make sure that this one has options, okay? And as you can see, the options are obviously an array, because if you want to have multiple options, then you want to show it in the multiple items. So let's make 2 array items. And we have 2 options. Let's say, no way, hey. And then what we could do is we could add a spoken by player. By default, spoken by player is true. What does spoken by player mean? Well, if we have options, then the camera is rotating to the player. And if it looks at the player and you want to click an option, or we could just execute that option directly, or we could say, hey, the player needs to say that complete sentence. So in this case, we say is spoken by player. Again, a custom sentence. And the fun thing is, it can be different. So let's say the option will show no. And then the spoken text will be no way, hey. Nice. What we could do is say, if this option is chosen, then the next sentence will be this. I don't want to add that right now because I think you have the idea. So let's only say no way, hey. And the second option will be yes. Let's also make that spoken by player. And yes, sir. That's weird, right? And I think now we can already try this out. So press play. Let's walk towards this rebel grunt. Ha! Say something weird for me, I dare you. Now we have two options, no or yes. Yes. Yes, sir. And it closes down the dialogue again. And the other one is, no way, hey? Both were weird, so I think he was lying. And now what you saw is, we just use all kinds of custom sentences, spoken by player text, things like that. But if you use these predefined sentences, it's really easy to add dialogues in a really quick way. As you saw, all of these dialogues were actually really easy to set up, so I think you will enjoy. I obviously already covered the real dialogue a bit, however, let's dive into it either way. The real dialogue is the same way. It is using the or predefined sentences, or you could use a custom sentence, which is really awesome. So in this case, the greeting and the thank you are a predefined sentence. Hello there, greetings, and it takes a random one. And the thank you says, thanks a lot, thanks a lot. Well, apparently that one is only one item in that array, otherwise it would choose a random one. We also have proximity-based dialogues. You're welcome here, and when we leave, take care, traveler. This one I think is a rebel. This is our territory, step carefully. Yeah, keep walking, so it's taunting us, right? So if we click on this one, what we will see is here in the real dialogue manager, predefined sentence in the proximity enter, it says the warning, and when we leave it says taunt. And I made all of these predefined sentences for you, so you could just switch it out and it simply will take one. And this one I think by default has the greeting and the goodbye. Yeah, perfect. We could also use this for effort sounds and things like that. And in this example, what I think I did is I linked an audio file instead of a auto gibberish sound. Yeah. And this one is the auto gibberish one, and this one is an audio file. Then we have interactive world reactions based on dialogues. Yeah. So that's looting, and the other one could be like on an overlap. Let's say you're walking into a cave and you just want to have like a self sentence and say, hey, what is this? I feel some power or whatever, right? And we could also use all of these. These were predefined sentences, and now we have custom sentences. This is a custom sentence, etc., etc. And see, there's a lot of text right there. Oh yeah, and that one has an override with an audio file. However, this sentence was very, very long. Let me see.
Arrogance.
Oh yeah. This is talent. Yeah. So via this system, you could set up massive dialogues. You could export it, by the way, the data tables. You could also link it to an external tool, things like that, and it will make sure you can make dialogues for large open world games. This is a really, really, really powerful tool. It's good to know that we also have our own subtitle system for the real dialogues. So it has proximity-based subtitles, especially perfect for replication and things like that. The last thing to discuss is how to set this up in your own project. When you get this project, you will get this wall project. And why isn't an add to project? Well, because it requires a couple of plugins and some project settings. The plugins we're talking about is mainly the Common UI plugin. And we use the Common UI plugin to make sure to use the UI tool so it's also gamepad compatible. The other thing is, for all the interactions that we show right here, I've set up some project settings like interaction traces and things like that. Obviously, if you use your own interaction system, you could simply use it. Because if you look at our character, what you will see is you'll see all kinds of components and you think, oh, it's so convoluted or whatnot. But it's not needed if you don't want to. However, to play an animation, I made a replication subsystem to make it replicated over the world. To be able to start interaction trace, I have an interaction component. To be able to walk around, I have a movement component, things like that. However, if you simply want to delete the interaction component, you can. Yes, you will see errors, but these errors are obvious, because if you open up this character, you will see an interaction event and it says on interaction, start a dialogue. If you simply want your own interaction, then you need to call an event or an interface call with your own system. However, I simply think that's recommended for intermediate to advanced users and not per se for beginners. However, I think it's a good way to learn the engine and basic programming skills. How to set this up? In general, what you need on your player, we have our player controller for the player itself, and that's where we are managing our subtitles. The other one is on our pawn. We have the dialogue manager of the player itself and also a voice component. The voice component on the player, that determines the name, what voice it has, things like that. And if you want to have memories, then you need a memory component. And if you want the player to be able to have real dialogues, like also for grunting, things like that, then you need to have the real dialogue manager. On NPCs itself, in the world, there you can assign the real dialogue manager, the NPC dialogue manager, and the actor component voice, and optionally the memory component. And that's about it. Always, if you are unsure what project settings to use, just check the config files and see what's there. I really hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you have a great day. This system is awesome. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Bye. Congrats, you have reached the end of this video. And of course, always feel free to reach out, for instance in the comments below via Discord or mail. And don't forget to check out our website and Discord. I'm happy to talk to you there. Have a nice day. Bye.